What if one soldier, in the heart of World War II, refused to follow orders that would have cost dozens of lives, but in doing so, ended up saving 75 of his comrades? This is not a story of heroism on the battlefield in the usual sense. It's a story of courage that went against the grain, of moral conviction in the face of war, and of a man whose refusal to obey an order changed the fate of an entire unit. During the chaos of World War II, obedience to command was often considered the ultimate duty. Yet, in the midst of a deadly mission, one soldier made a decision that would shock his superiors and inspire those around him. While many might have seen refusal as insubordination, his choice was guided by principle, quick thinking, and an unwavering commitment to protect human life. In this story, we will uncover how a single act of defiance not only challenged military authority, but also prevented a massacre, saving 75 men and leaving a legacy of moral courage that would be remembered long after the war ended. The events that led to the extraordinary actions of this World War II soldier began during a tense campaign on the European front, where Allied forces were pushing into heavily defended enemy territory. The soldier, whose name would later become legendary among his unit, had been trained thoroughly in military tactics, weapons handling, and battlefield strategy. Like many soldiers of the era, he understood the importance of following orders without question, a principle drilled into recruits to maintain discipline in the chaos of war. Yet this soldier was not only disciplined, he also possessed a deeply ingrained moral compass that would ultimately guide him through one of the most critical moments of his service. It was during a particularly intense mission that the situation arose. His unit was tasked with securing a strategic position held by enemy forces, a position that, if captured, could provide a significant advantage in the broader campaign. The operation was carefully planned, with soldiers assigned specific roles, artillery support coordinated, and a clear timeline for the assault. Yet, as the mission unfolded, it became evident that the plan would lead to devastating casualties if executed without alteration. From the soldier's vantage point, he could see that following the direct order would send dozens of men into near certain death. The moment required split-second decision-making, courage, and an ability to think beyond conventional military protocol. Faced with this reality, he made a choice that would defy the expectations of his commanding officers. He refused to follow the order to attack a heavily fortified enemy position directly. Instead, he devised an alternative approach on the spot, one that would minimize casualties while still achieving the strategic objectives of the mission. Drawing upon his knowledge of the terrain, the movements of the enemy, and the positioning of his own unit, he orchestrated a diversion that drew enemy fire away from the main group and created an opportunity to flank the position. This decision required not only tactical brilliance, but also the trust of his fellow soldiers, who had to follow his lead despite the extraordinary circumstances. The flanking maneuver he implemented was executed with precision, using natural cover and the element of surprise. The soldier led a small contingent to approach the enemy from an unexpected direction. This forced the opposing forces to redirect their attention, allowing the main unit to advance without walking directly into a deadly crossfire. Every step was fraught with danger: enemy patrols, sniper positions, and the ever-present threat of artillery made the approach perilous. Yet the soldier's careful planning and calm demeanor inspired confidence in those around him, allowing them to execute the plan flawlessly. Meanwhile, the men in the main unit, unaware of the full extent of his tactical improvisation, initially assumed that following the original orders was their only path. However, as the diversion began to take effect and enemy fire shifted away from their position, they quickly realized that the danger had decreased significantly. This moment of revelation reinforced the importance of the soldier's decision and highlighted how one individual's courage could dramatically alter the outcome of a mission. His refusal to follow a destructive order had not only saved his comrades from immediate harm, but also preserved the unit's overall operational effectiveness. As the engagement continued, the soldiers' leadership and quick thinking proved even more critical. Enemy reinforcements attempted to counter the flanking maneuver, but the soldier anticipated these movements and adjusted his strategy in real time. Small squads were redirected to block potential counterattacks, while signals and improvised communication allowed the larger unit to maintain coordination without exposing themselves to unnecessary risk. His tactical awareness, combined with a profound sense of responsibility for the lives of those under his command, ensured that the mission progressed with minimal casualties. The broader implications of his actions were significant. In a war often defined by obedience and rigid hierarchy, the soldier demonstrated that moral judgment and human empathy could coexist with military strategy. His refusal to blindly follow orders did not result in chaos or insubordination. Instead, it showcased how thoughtful, principled decision-making could enhance the effectiveness of a military operation while preserving lives. The 75 men whose lives were saved would later speak of his courage and ingenuity, emphasizing that his intervention had changed the course of their lives in ways that transcended the battlefield. The aftermath of the mission further solidified the soldier's legacy. Reports and testimonials from his unit highlighted the extraordinary circumstances under which he acted. Superiors, initially skeptical of his deviation from orders, eventually recognized that his actions had not only prevented a disaster, but had also contributed to the broader success of the campaign. Military historians would later cite this incident as a remarkable example of battlefield ethics, leadership, and the critical importance of situational awareness. The soldier's ability to weigh moral considerations against tactical objectives became a case study in military academies, illustrating the complex interplay between duty, conscience, and survival in war. What made his actions even more remarkable was the personal risk involved. In a military environment where refusal to obey orders could result in severe punishment, including court-martial or even execution, the soldier chose to act according to his principles. This decision required not only courage under fire, but also the moral fortitude to prioritize human life above rigid hierarchy. The balance he struck between respecting military discipline and exercising ethical judgment offers a profound lesson in leadership, demonstrating that true heroism often involves making choices that defy conventional expectations. The story also underscores the importance of initiative and adaptability in combat situations. While armies rely on structured plans, the chaos of war often renders rigid strategies insufficient. The soldier's ability to assess the situation, identify a safer and more effective approach, and lead his men through uncharted tactical territory exemplifies the qualities of adaptive leadership. He did not wait for orders or confirmation. He trusted his judgment and leveraged the skills and knowledge he had acquired to protect those around him. This proactive mindset, combined with moral courage, transformed a potentially catastrophic situation into a successful mission. Beyond the tactical brilliance, the human element of this story is striking. The soldier's empathy for his fellow men, his determination to prevent unnecessary death, was the driving force behind his decisions. In the midst of violence, fear, and chaos, he maintained a deep sense of humanity, refusing to allow the machinery of war to extinguish his moral compass. His actions remind us that even in the most harrowing circumstances, individuals have the power to influence outcomes positively, preserving life and dignity in situations designed to strip them away. By the conclusion of the operation, the mission had achieved its strategic goals. The enemy position was neutralized, and 75 soldiers had survived a scenario that could have ended in tragedy. The soldier's intervention had altered the course of events, demonstrating that courage is not only measured by acts of aggression on the battlefield, but also by restraint, wisdom, and the preservation of life. His legacy, remembered by those he saved and by historians who chronicled the event, continues to serve as a powerful example of ethical decision-making in war. This story challenges traditional notions of heroism in combat. It shows that true bravery is not solely about charging into danger, but also about making choices that protect others, even when such choices defy orders and expectations. The soldier's actions highlight the moral complexity of warfare, where following orders blindly can result in unnecessary suffering, while principled defiance, guided by strategic thinking, can save lives and achieve objectives more effectively. In the broader context of World War II, his story stands out as a testament to the human capacity for moral courage under pressure. It is a reminder that even amidst widespread conflict and destruction, individuals retain the agency to make ethical choices, to prioritize humanity, and to lead with conscience as well as skill. The soldier who refused to kill and instead saved 75 men exemplifies how integrity, bravery, and quick thinking can converge to create extraordinary outcomes, leaving a lasting impact on history and on the lives of countless individuals. The tale of this World War II soldier is not just about a single act on the battlefield. It is about the enduring power of human conscience, the strength of ethical leadership, and the profound difference one individual can make. It serves as a reminder that courage comes in many forms, and that the most heroic acts may sometimes be the ones that preserve life rather than take it. His story continues to inspire, teaching us that bravery, guided by principle, can create ripples of impact that last far beyond the immediate moment, shaping lives and history itself. The story of the soldier who refused to kill begins not on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments before the mission was set into motion, as his unit prepared for what was meant to be a decisive assault. He observed the faces of his comrades, their fear, exhaustion, and reliance on one another. Unlike many soldiers who might have followed orders without question, he had a growing awareness of the stakes. The objective, while strategically significant, demanded an approach that would almost certainly lead to heavy casualties. In his mind, the lives of his men were as important as the success of the mission, and he began to consider alternatives. This foresight, coupled with moral conviction, would shape the actions that made him unforgettable. He spent the days leading up to the assault analyzing every detail. He studied maps, noted enemy positions, and memorized patrol patterns, artillery placements, and choke points. He also observed the temperament of his fellow soldiers, understanding who might falter under pressure and who could be trusted with critical tasks. Every element of planning became a mental rehearsal for a mission that he hoped would avoid unnecessary bloodshed, while superiors emphasized obedience. He recognized that true leadership sometimes required independent judgment, a lesson he had internalized through both personal reflection and wartime experience. On the day of the mission, the tension in the air was palpable. Soldiers were preparing equipment, checking weapons, and receiving final orders. The plan was clear: a frontal assault on a fortified enemy position, designed to break resistance and secure control over the area. The commanding officer emphasized speed and aggression, leaving little room for deviation. Yet the soldier's instincts told him that following the order to the letter would be disastrous. He understood that advancing directly into the enemy line would result in significant casualties, potentially wiping out most of the unit. His knowledge of the terrain, enemy positions, and timing suggested an alternative path that could achieve the same objectives while saving lives. He acted swiftly and decisively. Quietly, he conveyed his plan to trusted comrades, outlining a flanking maneuver that would divert enemy attention while allowing the main unit to advance under cover. Using the landscape to their advantage, hills, woods, and natural depressions, they could approach the target from an unexpected angle. The strategy was audacious, relying not only on stealth and precision, but also on the willingness of the men to trust his judgment. In a war defined by hierarchical obedience, asking others to follow a plan born of individual defiance required extraordinary confidence and credibility as the operation commenced. The soldier led a small contingent along the flanking route. Every step demanded caution. Enemy patrols, sniper positions, and artillery fire could have easily detected them. The men moved silently, relying on hand signals, subtle gestures, and the natural cover provided by terrain and darkness. Even the smallest mistake, a snapped branch, a misplaced footstep, could have triggered a deadly response. Yet the preparation paid off. The diversionary actions of the flanking group successfully drew enemy fire away from the main assault force, allowing the larger unit to advance with reduced risk. The main unit, initially unaware of the alternative strategy, began to notice a shift in enemy behavior. Fire that had seemed imminent and inevitable was redirected. Soldiers experienced a rare moment of relief as they advanced, sensing that something had changed in the dynamics of the battlefield. That change, unknown to most at the time, was the direct result of the soldier's moral courage and tactical ingenuity. His decision to prioritize life over blind obedience had created a safer path for his comrades, proving that thoughtful resistance to destructive orders could be a form of heroism. As the engagement intensified, the soldier continued to adapt. Enemy reinforcements and shifting patrols required real-time adjustments. The flanking group split and regrouped, utilizing terrain and observation points to maintain the advantage. Quick decisions, calculated risks, and split-second improvisations became the order of the day. The soldier's deep understanding of both strategy and human behavior enabled him to anticipate enemy reactions and plan contingencies. His actions exemplified adaptive leadership under extreme conditions, an essential quality in the chaos of battle. The physical and emotional toll of the operation was immense. Soldiers moved through mud, shellfire, and obstacles while grappling with fear, exhaustion, and the pressure of responsibility. Yet, amidst the stress and danger, the soldier remained focused and composed. His calm demeanor served as a stabilizing influence, instilling confidence in those around him. By leading with both courage and empathy, he reinforced the importance of human life and the principle that moral action need not be sacrificed in the pursuit of military objectives. Throughout the operation, the soldier's decision to refuse lethal orders inspired others in subtle but profound ways. Observing his commitment, some soldiers found the courage to act decisively in moments of uncertainty. His leadership created a ripple effect, enhancing the cohesion, morale, and effectiveness of the unit. While battlefield heroics often emphasize aggression, his example demonstrated that restraint, principle, and moral courage could achieve outcomes just as significant, if not more so, by the end of the mission. The soldier's actions had fundamentally altered the outcome. 75 men survived a scenario that, under the original plan, could have been catastrophic. The enemy position was successfully neutralized, objectives were secured, and the unit remained operational. The soldier's defiance of the original order did not disrupt the mission. Rather, it enhanced its effectiveness while preserving life. In the broader context of World War II, this story illustrates the profound impact that individual judgment, grounded in principle, can have on the course of events, beyond the immediate battlefield. The implications of his actions were far-reaching. Superiors, initially skeptical of his refusal to follow orders, eventually recognized that his choices had prevented disaster and contributed to mission success. The soldier's decision became a reference point in discussions of military ethics, leadership, and the balance between obedience and conscience. His story has been studied in military academies and leadership programs as an example of how moral courage and tactical, human, can coexist. Even in the high-pressure environment of war, the soldier's moral conviction did not come without personal risk. In wartime, disobedience could result in severe punishment or even execution. Yet, he chose to act according to principle, prioritizing the lives of his comrades over unquestioned obedience. This risk, coupled with the responsibility of leading others through danger, highlights the extraordinary courage required. His story demonstrates that true heroism often involves making difficult ethical choices in the face of personal danger, and that such choices can have life-saving consequences. Ultimately, the story of the soldier who refused to kill and saved 75 men transcends the battlefield. It is a testament to the power of individual conscience, moral courage, and strategic thinking. It challenges conventional notions of heroism, emphasizing that restraint, ethical judgment, and protection of human life are as valuable as acts of aggression. His actions offer a timeless lesson, even in war, where obedience is emphasized. One person's courage to act morally can transform outcomes and save countless lives. The legacy of this soldier continues to inspire generations, reminding us that leadership is not merely about following orders or executing tactics. It is about making principled decisions, taking responsibility for the welfare of others, and finding innovative solutions in the most challenging circumstances. His story is a powerful illustration of how moral courage, strategic intelligence, and human empathy can intersect to produce extraordinary results, leaving an enduring mark on history and the lives of those he saved. Asterisk. The moment of truth arrived in the early hours of the morning, just as the fog began to lift over the battlefield. The unit had been moving cautiously through enemy territory, following the soldier's alternative plan. Every step was calculated. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death. The enemy had fortified their position with machine guns, artillery, and strategically placed mines, making a frontal assault all but suicidal. Yet the soldier's mind remained razor-sharp, weighing every possible outcome as he led his men toward the objective. This was the crucible in which his courage, moral conviction, and tactical skill would be tested to their limits, as the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon. The unit encountered an unexpected obstacle, a heavily mined path that blocked the flanking route. One misstep could trigger a catastrophic explosion, risking the lives of the very men he had sworn to protect. The soldier assessed the situation quickly. With no time for hesitation, he devised a plan to bypass the mines by using natural cover, a narrow trench hidden by tall grass and earth mounds. He instructed small teams to move in sequence, carefully marking safe paths while keeping noise to an absolute minimum. The tension in the air was palpable. Any slip could result in immediate disaster, yet the men trusted him implicitly, following his lead with quiet determination as they advanced. Enemy forces became aware of unusual movements along the flanking side. Gunfire erupted sporadically, creating a storm of chaos around the unit. The soldier realized that if the enemy concentrated their fire, the mission and countless lives could be lost. In that critical moment, he made another audacious decision: to use the terrain itself as a weapon, directing his men to utilize the riverbanks, embankments, and natural depressions. He orchestrated a series of diversions that lured enemy soldiers away from the main flanking force. Smoke from small controlled fires and strategically thrown objects simulated larger troop movements, confusing the opposition and buying precious minutes. The first wave of the assault reached the enemy's perimeter. As predicted, the frontal line would have suffered catastrophic losses if executed as originally ordered. Yet, thanks to the soldier's plan, only a few men were exposed, and even then, they were shielded by natural cover and timely diversions. The soldier positioned himself between his men and the most dangerous points of fire, using both skill and instinct to guide them safely. Every shouted command, every hand signal, every repositioning had been rehearsed mentally countless times, and now the precision paid off. Lives were saved, and momentum slowly shifted in their favor. Enemy reinforcements arrived, attempting to counter the unexpected maneuver. But the soldier anticipated these moves, having studied the likely enemy responses during reconnaissance. He divided his flanking group into smaller teams, each with a specific task. One would provide covering fire. Another would secure communication lines. And the third would continue to guide the main force around obstacles. The coordination was flawless, a testament to the trust he had cultivated and the rigorous mental preparation that had preceded the operation. As enemy fire intensified, his leadership became the anchor holding the unit together, preventing panic and confusion from taking hold. Amidst the chaos, one of the most critical moments arrived when a young soldier froze in the open, paralyzed by fear under the enemy's line of fire. Without hesitation, the soldier moved forward, positioning himself between the young recruit and the danger. Using a combination of hand signals and calm words, he guided the man to safety, demonstrating both courage and empathy. This small act, seemingly minor in the grand scale of the battle, embodied the essence of his leadership: protection, moral conviction, and an unwavering focus on the welfare of those under his command. The enemy, now aware that their defenses were being outmaneuvered, began to retreat strategically, attempting to lure the unit into a trap. The soldier, however, had anticipated this possibility. Using a combination of rapid observation, battlefield intuition, and tactical foresight, he led his men through a series of concealed paths that avoided ambushes and crossfire. Every decision was a calculated gamble, yet the outcomes consistently favored the unit. His ability to think several steps ahead ensured that the men remained largely unscathed, a feat that would have seemed impossible under the original assault plan. As the engagement reached its climax, the soldier confronted the most dangerous situation of all: a heavily fortified bunker at the heart of the enemy's position. Standard procedure would have called for a direct assault, but this would have resulted in near-certain fatalities. Drawing upon his knowledge of the terrain, enemy patterns, and psychological behavior, he devised an unconventional approach. He instructed a small team to create a decoy, simulating an attack on one side of the bunker. Meanwhile, he led the remainder of his men to a hidden approach from the opposite side, using natural cover and stealth to gain the upper hand. The decoy drew enemy fire, allowing the main team to reach a vulnerable entry point, undetected, inside the bunker. The soldier faced a personal test of his moral stance. Enemy soldiers, surprised and overwhelmed, began to surrender, and he was confronted with the option to take lethal action or maintain his ethical commitment. True to his principles, he chose to subdue the opposition without unnecessary killing, securing the position while upholding the values that had guided him throughout the mission. This moment crystallized the core of his heroism. Courage was not only about surviving or defeating the enemy, but about maintaining humanity in the midst of war. By the end of the confrontation, the soldier's leadership had saved 75 men who otherwise would have been casualties in a standard frontal assault. The mission objectives were achieved, the enemy was neutralized, and his unit emerged largely intact. The tactical brilliance, combined with moral courage, had turned a potentially disastrous situation into a remarkable success. The soldier's actions not only preserved lives, but also demonstrated the profound impact of ethical decision-making. Under extreme pressure, the psychological aftermath of the battle was significant. Men who had witnessed his courage and moral resolve were inspired. Their morale strengthened and their commitment to one another deepened. Superiors, initially skeptical of his deviation from orders, came to recognize the necessity and wisdom of his actions. Military historians would later cite this operation as a prime example of leadership under pressure, illustrating how strategic thinking, ethical judgment, and courage can converge to achieve extraordinary outcomes. This climactic series of events illustrates the delicate balance between duty and conscience in wartime. The soldier's refusal to kill, guided by principle and strategic intelligence, demonstrates that heroism can take many forms. It is not measured solely by the number of enemy combatants defeated or ground captured, but by the preservation of life, the protection of comrades, and the courage to act according to one's moral convictions. As the battlefield quieted and the dust settled, the full scope of the soldier's achievement became evident. 75 lives had been spared through his decisive and principled actions. The enemy position, once considered impregnable, had been overcome not through brute force, but through intelligence, foresight, and ethical leadership. The success of the mission validated his choices, proving that even in the rigid hierarchy of military operations, conscience and creativity can coexist with duty and discipline. In the annals of World War II, this soldier's actions stand as a testament to the extraordinary potential of individual agency. One man, guided by principle and armed with knowledge, foresight, and courage, altered the course of a critical operation. His refusal to kill was not a rejection of duty, but a redefinition of it, showing that leadership, moral courage, and tactical brilliance can transform impossible situations into triumphs. This climax, where tactical skill, ethical decision-making, and bravery converged, serves as a powerful reminder that the true measure of heroism is not in blind obedience or unthinking aggression, but in the courage to make the right choice even when it defies orders and to protect life in the process. The soldier who saved 75 men did so not through traditional acts of combat heroism alone, but through intelligence, foresight, and unwavering moral conviction, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire and teach lessons about leadership, courage, and the enduring power of conscience in the darkest moments of human history. The battle had reached its most critical juncture as the soldier's unit approached the heart of the enemy's fortified position. By now, the flanking maneuver he had orchestrated was in full effect, drawing attention away from the main force while providing a safer path forward for the majority of his men. Yet the challenges were far from over. The enemy, sensing the unusual movement, began to adjust their defenses, sending small patrols and sniper teams to locate and halt the advancing soldiers. Every step forward required extreme caution, as even the slightest miscalculation could trigger a deadly encounter. The soldier's mind was a whirlwind of calculations, timing, distance, enemy positions, and the condition of his men all balanced against his unwavering moral commitment to avoid unnecessary killing as they moved through a narrow valley. An enemy observation post opened fire on a small squad, pinning them down and threatening to reveal the entire flanking movement. The soldier immediately assessed the situation, identifying an alternative route that would shield the squad while maintaining the integrity of the overall operation, signaling with hand gestures. He led a contingent through dense underbrush and a partially collapsed trench, keeping the men low and silent. Their movement was painstakingly slow, each step calculated to avoid snapping branches or kicking loose debris that could alert the enemy. Despite the constant threat of discovery, the soldiers followed without hesitation, inspired by the calm and confident demeanor of their leader. The enemy, now fully aware that their flanks were compromised, began to deploy reinforcements to counter the maneuver. Machine guns were repositioned and artillery aimed at potential approaches, creating a dangerous crossfire zone. The soldier quickly realized that a direct assault or continued frontal movement would be suicidal. Drawing upon his tactical knowledge, he devised a complex strategy involving diversion, misdirection, and precise coordination among small teams. One group would simulate a frontal attack with smoke and noise to draw attention, while another team would silently advance along hidden paths to strike at vulnerable points in the enemy's defense. The precision and timing of this plan required flawless execution, and any deviation could result in catastrophic loss of life. The soldiers' leadership became even more crucial as the flanking teams encountered unforeseen obstacles. A deep trench filled with debris and partially flooded by rain threatened to slow their progress. Enemy soldiers patrolled nearby, and a single misstep could expose the group to lethal fire. He took the lead, demonstrating the safest path while giving instructions on how to quietly overcome the obstacle. Using ropes and makeshift bridges fashioned from fallen beams, the men crossed the trench under his guidance, maintaining the element of surprise. Every decision reflected a delicate balance between caution and speed. As the clock and battlefield conditions left no room for hesitation, the psychological strain on the soldiers was immense. They were exhausted from days of continuous movement. Hunger gnawed at their focus, and fear lingered like a shadow over every step. Yet the presence of their leader, who maintained calm and clarity under pressure, instilled courage and resilience. His unwavering focus on both mission objectives and the safety of his men created an environment where fear was managed through disciplined action and mutual trust. Each soldier understood that following his lead was not just a tactical choice, but a moral one, a decision to protect one another from needless death as the unit approached the enemy's central position. The most formidable challenge awaited, a heavily fortified bunker that had withstood previous attacks. The soldier studied the structure carefully, noting the placement of machine guns, observation slits, and potential weak points. A direct assault would have been suicidal, and yet time was of the essence. Hesitation could allow the enemy to regroup and mount a counterattack. Using a combination of diversionary tactics and the terrain, he planned an approach that would minimize exposure while allowing his men to secure the bunker efficiently. Smoke bombs were deployed to obscure lines of sight. Movements simulated additional troop activity, and small teams were assigned to cover entry points. Every element of the plan was designed to preserve life while neutralizing the threat. Inside the bunker, the soldier confronted the final moral test. Enemy combatants were present, some surrendering, others attempting to resist. He had a clear opportunity to use lethal force, yet his guiding principle to avoid unnecessary killing remained unwavering. Instead, he coordinated his men to subdue the opposition using non-lethal tactics whenever possible, capturing prisoners and securing weapons without bloodshed. This act required extraordinary courage, as any misstep could result in his own death or that of his comrades. By maintaining his moral stance, he demonstrated that heroism is not measured solely by aggression or destruction, but by the ability to act ethically in the most extreme circumstances. The success of the operation was not instantaneous. The final moments required intense coordination and adaptability. Enemy reinforcements attempted to reclaim lost ground, and sporadic firefights erupted around the perimeter. The soldier directed his men to use the terrain strategically, taking cover behind debris, fallen walls, and natural features. Quick thinking allowed small teams to intercept enemy patrols and prevent them from reaching the main force. The combination of tactical ingenuity and moral resolve ensured that casualties remained minimal, while mission objectives were achieved by the end of the engagement. The full impact of the soldiers' actions was clear. 75 men had been saved from near-certain death, a number that underscored the extraordinary consequences of one individual's courage and ethical decision-making. The enemy's fortifications had been neutralized, and the mission objectives accomplished without the unnecessary loss of life that a conventional assault would have caused. The operation became a landmark example of how moral courage, tactical intelligence, and leadership under pressure can converge to produce outcomes that are both strategically successful and ethically sound. The psychological impact on the soldiers cannot be overstated. Witnessing a leader who prioritized human life over strict obedience inspired loyalty, trust, and a heightened sense of responsibility among the men. They saw firsthand that courage could take the form of restraint and ethical action, and that true leadership involves guiding others safely through danger rather than recklessly pursuing orders. The bonds formed during this operation strengthened the unit, fostering a level of cohesion and trust that would influence future engagements. In the aftermath, the soldier's actions were recognized both by his peers and by superiors. Although initial skepticism had been strong, His refusal to follow a potentially deadly order could have been seen as insubordination. Yet the undeniable success of the mission silenced critics. Military historians later highlighted this episode as a case study in battlefield ethics, demonstrating that adherence to conscience does not conflict with strategic objectives, but can, in fact, enhance operational effectiveness. The climax of this operation stands as a testament to the extraordinary potential of individual agency in wartime. It illustrates that courage is not only measured by acts of aggression or heroics under fire, but by the ability to make morally sound decisions, to think strategically under pressure, and to lead others safely through impossible circumstances. This soldier's story is a powerful reminder that even amidst the chaos of World War II, one person's resolve to act ethically could reshape the fate of dozens and leave a lasting legacy of courage, wisdom, and humanity. The battlefield may have been brutal, unforgiving, and chaotic, but through intelligence, foresight, and moral fortitude, the soldier transformed a mission that could have been disastrous into one of triumph. His actions demonstrated that heroism is multidimensional, encompassing strategic brilliance, moral courage, and a profound respect for life. In saving 75 men, he not only altered the outcome of a single mission, but also set an enduring example of how principled leadership can achieve extraordinary results in even the most extreme circumstances. This extended climax captures the full tension, danger, and moral stakes of the soldier's decisions, providing a vivid account of how one man's refusal to kill led to one of the most remarkable acts of courage in World War II. The story of the soldier who refused to kill and, instead, saved 75 men is more than a single heroic episode in the vast history of World War II. It is a testament to the profound impact that individual moral courage can have on the lives of many. While wars are often remembered for battles, strategies, and conquests, the most compelling stories are frequently those of ordinary men making extraordinary ethical choices under extreme pressure. This soldier's refusal to obey a potentially lethal order, coupled with his strategic ingenuity, exemplifies a form of heroism that is both rare and enduring. It shows that in the midst of conflict, conscience can be as powerful a weapon as any gun or artillery. His actions demonstrated that leadership is not solely about following orders or demonstrating brute strength on the battlefield. True leadership requires a delicate balance of tactical intelligence, foresight, and, most importantly, moral judgment. By prioritizing the lives of his men, he redefined what it means to lead in wartime. In an environment dominated by hierarchy and obedience, he showed that questioning orders for the sake of humanity is not weakness, but courage. It is a lesson that resonates beyond the battlefield, extending into leadership principles in business, community, and personal life. The ability to make principled decisions, even when faced with immense pressure, is a hallmark of enduring influence. The soldier's tactical ingenuity cannot be understated. Every step of the operation, flanking maneuvers, diversions, the use of terrain, and the strategic management of enemy attention was meticulously planned and executed. His decisions were based not only on maps and reconnaissance, but also on his deep understanding of human behavior, both within his unit and among enemy forces. By analyzing patterns of fear, predictability, and reaction, he orchestrated a sequence of movements that minimized risk and maximized efficiency. It was this blend of strategic brilliance and ethical consideration that allowed him to transform a near-suicidal mission into a remarkable success. The human element of his story is equally powerful. Soldiers under his command were exhausted, frightened, and uncertain. Yet, witnessing their leader's calm, calculated, and morally driven decision-making instilled confidence and courage. This psychological impact cannot be measured in statistics or maps, but is evident in the way trust and loyalty deepened among the unit. He became more than a commander. He became a protector, a moral anchor, and a symbol of hope amidst the chaos of war. The survival of 75 men was not merely a result of tactical skill, was a direct consequence of the empathy, respect, and human consideration he demonstrated. Historically, this operation challenges the traditional narratives of heroism in World War II. Most stories celebrate aggression, audacity, and brute force. Yet here was a soldier whose bravery was defined not by killing or destruction, but by restraint, ethical judgment, and protection of life. By refusing to kill unnecessarily, he preserved humanity in a situation designed to strip it away. In doing so, he expanded the definition of heroism, proving that true courage is often found in moments of restraint rather than violence. His example reminds us that ethical action, even in extreme circumstances, is not only possible but profoundly effective. The legacy of his choices extends beyond the battlefield. In post-war analysis, military strategists and historians have cited his operation as a model for the integration of ethical decision-making into tactical planning. It provides a blueprint for leaders operating under high-stakes conditions. Success does not have to come at the cost of morality. By showing that life-preserving decisions can coincide with strategic effectiveness. The soldier's story challenges the assumption that war requires moral compromise. It illustrates that ethical courage can be both practical and heroic. Furthermore, the personal courage required to act against orders cannot be overstated. In the rigid hierarchy of World War II military structures, disobedience, especially in combat, was punishable by severe consequences, including court-martial or execution. Yet this soldier's conscience guided him to act in defiance of protocol, trusting that his judgment was correct and that the lives of his men outweighed personal risk. The stakes were unimaginably high. The consequences of error were deadly. That he succeeded so completely speaks to the extraordinary combination of intelligence, courage, and moral clarity he possessed. The long-term effects on the men he saved are immeasurable. 75 families, communities, and countless future generations were indirectly impacted by his decision to preserve life. Each man who survived carried forward a legacy shaped by his moral and tactical leadership. The ripple effects of such actions extend far beyond the immediate battlefield, influencing the course of countless lives. In a war marked by indiscriminate death, his story shines as a rare example of life, preserved through courage and principle. The psychological and ethical lessons from his actions remain relevant today. In modern leadership, crisis management, and ethical decision-making, the principles illustrated by this soldier's choices offer timeless guidance. Courage is not solely physical. It is moral and intellectual. Leadership requires the ability to weigh consequences, prioritize human welfare, and make difficult decisions under pressure. His example reminds us that even in situations dominated by orders, rules, and authority, individuals possess the agency to make principled choices that can save lives and inspire others. In reflecting on the operation's success, one sees a convergence of several elements: moral courage, strategic intelligence, human empathy, and leadership under extreme stress. Each factor alone might have been insufficient, but together they created a scenario in which disaster was averted, objectives were met, and life was preserved. The soldier's actions demonstrate the power of integrated leadership, where ethical decision-making and tactical brilliance operate in harmony rather than opposition. Ultimately, this soldier's story is a beacon of hope and a lesson in humanity. It illustrates that even in the darkest circumstances, when violence and death are pervasive, an individual guided by principle can make a decisive difference. The preservation of 75 lives, the success of a critical mission, and the enduring legacy of ethical courage all stem from the same choice: to refuse unnecessary killing, even when obeying orders would have been easier and safer for him personally. In doing so, he not only saved lives but also left an indelible mark on history, teaching that heroism is defined as much by conscience as by action. For audiences today, the lessons resonate beyond military contexts. Whether in leadership roles, ethical dilemmas, or everyday decisions, the principle remains: courage and morality are not mutually exclusive. One can act decisively, take responsibility, and achieve results while remaining true to ethical standards. The soldier's example is a compelling reminder that principled action in the face of danger is both possible and transformative. In conclusion, the soldier who refused to kill and saved 70 men stands as one of the most extraordinary examples of moral courage in World War II. His actions underscore the profound impact of ethical decision-making, strategic intelligence, and human empathy under extreme circumstances. He redefined heroism by proving that restraint, principle, and care for human life can be as powerful as any weapon on the battlefield. His legacy continues to inspire, offering lessons not only in military history, but in leadership, morality, and the enduring value of courage guided by conscience. In this incredible story, we explored the extraordinary courage of a World War II soldier who refused to kill and, instead, saved the lives of 75 men. Against impossible odds, facing heavily fortified enemy positions and life-threatening danger, he led his unit with tactical brilliance, moral conviction, and unwavering calm. His refusal to follow potentially lethal orders demonstrated that true heroism isn't always about aggression. It's about protecting life, making ethical decisions under pressure, and leading with both intelligence and humanity. This soldier's actions turned what could have been a catastrophic mission into a remarkable triumph, leaving a lasting legacy that inspires even today. If this story moved you, imagine how many other untold tales of courage from World War II remain hidden in history. Make sure you don't miss them. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and join us as we uncover the astonishing stories of soldiers whose bravery and humanity changed the course of history. Every week, we bring you gripping, real-life accounts of heroism, sacrifice, and unforgettable moments from World War II that will leave you amazed. Don't just watch history, experience it. And be inspired by the courage of those who risked everything to save others. You said,